Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Tech Motoring. On today's episode, we're going to be going over my first 6 months as a solar customer. We're going to be talking about how much energy I produced, how much energy I used, and how much money it ended up saving me. So hit that subscribe button, stay tuned. We're going to be right back. Alright everybody, welcome back. So like I was saying, we're going to be going over some numbers from 2019 and 2020 to make some comparisons. We're going to be taking a look at how much energy we ended up producing over the 6 months that we've had solar. We're even going to be seeing how much money it ended up saving us. Now I know typically we end up usually going over just 1 month of our solar production costs and savings. However, this time we're going to go over the first 6 months, kind of get an idea of exactly how solar has been, what we were expecting, what we ended up getting, and is it actually worth it in the long run. So anyway, let's dive in. Let's take a look at the first slide. Here in the first slide, we see the last 6 months of the year, July through December. Now the blue columns are 2019 and the orange columns are 2020. What this is actually comparing is the amount of electricity we used from the electricity company from last year, 2019, to the current year, 2020. Now, keeping in mind that we did not have solar back in 2019, now these numbers are strictly off of what we used from the electricity company versus 2020, which we can see that we have the solar, which gives us a better idea of exactly how much we've saved per month with our solar. Now granted, I understand that these numbers aren't completely comparable due to the fact that weather changes will change how your HVAC system runs and how often it runs and other things as well. And I'm going to go over some of the individual differences that we will have in these months and why those numbers may seem a little bit more skewed left and right. Let's go ahead and take a look. So in July, as you can see, we did save a little bit more electricity this year. Now, keeping in mind July, we actually didn't have the solar active till about the second week. I believe it was the 7th or 8th of July by the time we actually got the solar turned on and producing for the house. So as you can see, we even had a lower electricity bill in 2020, but not much lower, and July is a pretty high production month. So considering we lost about 1/4 of the month, I still think that's pretty good. It shows that there was a fairly decent savings in that month, and it shows that we didn't have to use as much electricity from the actual electricity company. Of course, moving into August, you see that we still had some savings in the full month of August. September obviously had a significant savings versus the previous year. Once again, understand that these are not completely comparable because of the fact of weather patterns and things that change year by year and even day by day for that matter. October, once again, fairly significant difference in the columns there. You can see that we did save, or I should say we used a lot less electricity from the company versus this past year. And of course, November and December are reflecting roughly the same exact results. I can say that with pretty good consistency that we are actually using a lot less electricity from the electricity company due to the fact that the solar is producing so much electricity over the course of those months that even if we send a lot of it back, we are still getting a pretty significant savings just for the stuff that we do use, because even when we're only home on weekends, say, we're trying to utilize that solar power as much as we possibly can. So we're doing the laundry during the day. We are charging our new electric car. If you haven't seen the video about our new electric car, hit the link right up here. We did buy a Hyundai Ioniq recently, and that's actually going to skew some of the numbers for December a little bit. We'll go over that in a little bit. Like I was saying, as we're home on the weekends, we try to utilize the solar as much as possible. Laundry, charging the car, obviously, doing as much as we can during the day, when it comes to maybe cooking or something. All that is almost free at that point because of the fact that we're producing so much electricity during the middle of the day. That is a big money savings that we have just due to the, 2 days a week that we have off of work and we are home. Not including the fact that when we are at home, you still have to run your HVAC. You still have some draw from, you have things plugged in. Of course, your refrigerator runs quite a bit during the day as well. These are all things that get mitigated due to the fact that you have solar running, even when you're not even home. You know, just because you're not home doesn't mean you don't have any type of electricity draw. You still do. You can definitely completely mitigate all that little bit of draw that you have during the day. And that does add up. I've recently noticed that I have about 200 to 300 watts of energy at any time in the house that are getting pulled. And if you're wondering how I know that, we'll go over that in the future. I actually have a video coming up soon about these what they call current transformers that you could tie into your electricity panel, and actually it shows the amount of current that's going in and out of your house, and it works in conjunction with your solar, so you can actually see how much you're producing and how much you're actually pulling at the same time, which is really cool, really helpful. It kind of gives you an idea of exactly what's going on in your house 24 hours a day too, which is really nice. So now this is the cost comparison for each of our bills from July to December of 19 and 2020. Over the course of those 6 months in 2019, it costed us $543.16 in electricity costs. In 2020, it was $490.32. So yes, we did have a savings, albeit a small savings. However, I got to go over a couple of these things here to explain why there was such a small difference. July, as you can see right there, July only has a very small savings. And the reason for that is because, once again, solar wasn't active until the second week of July. So we lost about a quarter of the month worth of production. So that's why that little bit of, gain that we have is so small, is just because of the fact that we lost a good chunk of that month. In August, as you can clearly tell, we had quite a bit of savings. We didn't spend near as much money on electricity for the month of August. September, we had a bit of a savings. October, we had a bit of a savings. November, we had a bit of a savings. And then in December, we had a little bit of a loss. And I'll go over why we had that little bit of a loss. But first, let me just put this in as a disclaimer. If you haven't seen our previous videos on solar, go ahead and take a look at this link that I have up here. This is about the solar playlist from the very beginning when we started this, all the way up till now. We did at least once a month, we did an episode for our solar, so take a look at that if you have a few minutes. But in our first episode there, or probably our second episode, I went over how in my area, our electricity company charges us like a fee for being a solar customer. And that fee ranges every month, but overall, that cost is actually in these bars as well. So even though we have that little bit of a surcharge every month for being a solar customer, that is actually in this cost. So even when you see these orange bars only saving, so much, a little bit, that is actually after we've paid for all the extra surcharges and so on and so forth. Now, that being said, that's the reason why December looks so awful. December is the worst month for solar in this area, and it definitely showed this year. So not only did we kind of lose money in December due to the fact that we had to pay that surcharge, not produce really that much at all. The weather was pretty terrible. We also had an issue with our AC unit where we tried to use the heat pump in the first week of December, and we basically didn't have any heat. So we had about 3 or 4 days where it was running, but it wasn't running very efficiently, and it wasn't really heating the house, so it was running a lot more than it should have. It ended up turning up our auxiliary strips, our auxiliary heat, so this way we can actually produce some sort of heat for the house, so that costed us a lot of money. So December was one of those months where we ended up just kind of having to eat the extra cost because of it. On top of that, December last year, 2019, which we're seeing here, we were actually out of state for a week. So that was another reason why December last year is actually a little bit lower than it probably should be, due to the fact that we weren't even in the state for a quarter of the month. So because of all those reasons, that's why our December looks so awful versus last year's December. But once again, we expect this, being solar customers, this is something that you have to deal with occasionally, is that you're going to have months where you may have, just bad weather, a lot of rain. I mean, when you have months where you get hurricanes, that could be 3 or 4 days of just cloudy and crappy rainy weather. I mean, you just never know, how that stuff's going to play out every year. So that's why these numbers, it's hard to say a direct comparison. Now, this slide is strictly production. Now, what this actually is how much electricity our solar panels produced versus how much we were told by the company that was installing them, how much production we were going to get out of those solar panels for the year. So this is a month by month. So we took an average of what was estimated, which is in blue, versus the actual production, which is in orange. And as you can see, the estimate was 3,333 kilowatt hours of electricity that we were going to produce July through December. And we ended up producing 3,334 kilowatt hours. So it goes to show you that their estimates was pretty accurate. Now, once again, July is missing a week because of the fact that we didn't have it fully activated till that second week. So actually, we probably would have produced, I don't know, maybe as much as 100 kilowatt hours, depending on the weather for that first week of July. And you have to keep that in mind as well, is that there's also that week in July that's not technically there and should be. And as you can see by the graph, I mean, not every month was better than the estimate, but not every month was worse than the estimate. We had months that were pretty accurate. We had months that were slightly better. We had months that were slightly worse. And that's pretty obvious, once again, with weather patterns and just the way the weather is. You get cloudy days, you're not going to produce that much. You get days that are beautiful and no clouds in the sky whatsoever, and you're going to get a perfect curve of solar production through that day. And that's really what you want. However, you got to keep in mind that that's not always how things are going to be. So it just goes to show you that when they do run these estimates, they are, well, at least in this case, fairly accurate, fairly representative. And I like how we ended up slightly better than the estimate, because that goes to show you that, maybe they're not trying to just, inflate the numbers just to make it look good. They're not trying to give you the higher end of average just to make it look like you're producing a little bit more. These were spot on for average, and you can't be upset with that. So I think that's pretty good. Now, something I want to go over now, I could throw out and spit out all these numbers like I have done for the past 6 months. And, honestly, a lot of people probably don't understand exactly what a kilowatt hour is. How much is that? I mean, how much energy is a kilowatt hour? A lot of people don't understand that. When you buy appliances, you're not looking at, well, how much kilowatt hours does it produce? And that's why a lot of appliances and general electronics, for that matter, have those yellow stickers on it that say energy guide and roughly this much money per year device would cost you. And when you see those stickers, you just take the number and you run with it. Even though those numbers are averages, it may not perfectly reflect your use of the product. It may not even be an accurate representation of how that product is used on a daily basis, or even if that kilowatt hour charge that they show you on those stickers is even accurate to your area. You might be a little bit below or even a little bit higher than what they estimate in there. But everything's based on that national average. So I want to break down exactly what that math can be, and maybe a better understanding of how you can kind of do this math in your head when you go to buy an appliance or really anything for that matter nowadays. And I want to kind of put this in a way that can relate to what everybody's used to, which is, gas mileage, fuel mileage for your car. We're very much used to how much miles per gallon does a car get and how much does it cost to buy a gallon of gas. And I think when we take those into consideration, we can easily understand, how much something costs. So I wanted to kind of break down exactly, as best as I can, based on averages, exactly how much energy we potentially created in the past 6 months and how much that could potentially fuel a vehicle in that event. So how much solar did we really produce? So here's the breakdown of what we could have gotten out of our production this 6 months that we've had solar. So we produced 3.3 megawatt hours of electricity, or like I said before, 3,334 kilowatt hours of electricity. And once again, if you don't know what that means, that's okay. I'm going to break it down for you right now. You're going to get an idea of exactly what that means and roughly how much that can mean to you. Like I mentioned before, we recently just purchased our first EV car. It is a Hyundai Ioniq. It has a 28 kilowatt hour battery, or a usable kilowatt hour battery. So think of the 28 kilowatt hours as kind of like gallons of fuel. So, let's say that your car has a 28 gallon fuel tank. That's what 28 kilowatt hours is. That's not the comparison directly, but just think of it like that. 28 kilowatt hours is capacity. So if 28 kilowatt hours, you have that many gallons of fuel in your tank. Kilowatt hours, gallons of fuel. You could think of it similar to that. So that is how much energy you have stored to be able to use for that distance. Now, the Hyundai Ioniq has an EPA range of 124 miles. That's the EPA rated range. I'm not taking this from my personal experience. I'm just taking this from what the EPA rated that car as. And you'll probably recognize those from when you go to buy a car. They usually have it on the window sticker. City miles this many, and highway miles this many, and your EPA rated is about the average of those two, and that's how you typically get that. So from a full battery, 100% down to 0%, we should get an average of about 124 miles. Okay, so let's move it on. So if we take the 3,334 kilowatt hours of energy we produced, and we divide that by the 28 kilowatt hour battery that the car has, that is about 119 full charges of energy on that car. 119 full charges from 0 to 100% on that car. That's the equivalent of going 14,756 miles. So just to kind of break that down, that means we produced enough electricity in 6 months to drive over 14,000 miles for nothing. That's the equivalent right there. So let's break this down a little bit more. So let's take that 14,756 miles. And let's say you get an average gas mileage in your car of 30 miles to the gallon. I think that's pretty standard nowadays. It's about average. So let's say you take that average, divide that. That is roughly 492 gallons of fuel. Now take that 492 gallons of gasoline and multiply that by an average $2.50 per gallon. Well, that number comes out to be $1,230 in gasoline costs. So, in theory, to break this down for you a little bit more, the car that we recently purchased can be charged up 119 times in the past 6 months just by solar. We could have gone over 14,700 miles on that and saved ourselves over $1,200 in fuel costs over that time. And that's why solar ends up being very important for not only now but the future, because we need to find better ways of producing energy, because when we do end up going to solar and wind turbine electricity production, and then we start driving electric cars, there's going to be a lot more demand. There's going to be a lot more demand by everybody. Everybody is going to be driving eventually some sort of electrified transportation. It's going to happen, and whether that's 15, 20, 30 years, whatever you want to call it, it's going to happen. So take these numbers, take them for what you will. Take them. I'm not saying that I saved $1,200 this year on fuel costs. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying what the potential could be. What can we potentially save? So that is my 6-month roundup of my solar experience, what we've saved, what we've done. You've seen it all. I've given you the numbers. I've had all these videos for the past 6 months. I think maybe I'm going to take a break from doing these solar videos every month. I think maybe we'll just do this maybe quarterly, kind of go over some numbers to see exactly what we've experienced, what we've gotten out of it, was it worth it, and I think we'll just do this every 3 months. I don't know, let me know. Leave it in the comments. Are you interested in more of these monthly? Are you interested in the videos I was doing previously where I could show you how to save more money on your electricity bill and show you how, you know, you can go about different ways of saving money as opposed to going solar, or if you're interested in solar, or just let me know. Leave it in the comments. Maybe I'll do one in April for January, February, March. So this way we can kind of go over exactly, you know, what we're saving on a quarterly basis, and we'll just run these numbers again and kind of see what they look like. Anyway, I hope everybody had a wonderful new year, a wonderful holiday. I hope everybody is going to be healthy. Let's hope 2021 brings us some better luck than we had last year. I'd like to thank you very much for watching all of these episodes. I'd like to thank you for your input on all these videos. And don't stop there. Leave some more input below. And this is the first time you're in the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. Hit that thumbs up that's right next to it, and even hit that little bell for notifications. Once again, I'd like to thank you for watching. Don't forget to check us out. We have our website, techmotoring.com, which we're going to be doing a lot more with this year. If you are on Twitter, you could go ahead and follow me there as well, at techmotoring. If you want to follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/techmotoring. Thanks again for watching, and remember, welcome to the future, and welcome to Tech Motoring. We'll see you on the next episode.